This podcast is for educational purposes only, does not constitute legal advice, and does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you need legal assistance about a legal problem, contact an attorney.
You're listening to Know Your Regulator, the podcast that inspires you to engage. I am your host, Simone Murphy, and today this is a special episode. We're featuring the latest insights from our Healthcare Pros Charting Texas series. That's a collection of focused conversations just for medical professionals. So we're going to be talking about something that's as modern as it is dangerous, going live on social media while holding a nursing license. To walk us through it, we are joined by Maggie Ortiz, a nurse advocate and former Texas Board of Nursing investigator. She's been on both sides conducting investigations and now educating nurses on how to stay protected, compliant, and proud of their practice. Thanks for joining us, Maggie.
Hey, good morning.
It's good to have you. This has been a pretty hot topic right now, especially. You've got a pretty unique background as a former, nursing board investigator. What is the first thing that would trigger, the Board of Nursing's interest in a case like this?
More likely than not, it's going to be someone sending in this video. So it would roll onto the investigator's desk in some form of a link to a video in an email, or because traditionally I would get a folder and have to open up the folder. But like you said, in the evolving day and age, for the investigator as well, that would more likely than not be a link to a video, whatever platform. It doesn't matter whether it's LinkedIn or TikTok or Instagram, or it doesn't matter where this is generating from. You're just video on your own phone. It's just not appropriate at all. It's the epitome of unprofessional conduct.
Yeah.
For so many reasons. I think that I would hope that not just the nurses, but anyone who holds a professional license, and unfortunately seems to be prevalent in the last few years amongst the nursing population. But this is a cultural poor practice, and we never do that. So the Board of Nursing most certainly would be looking at that, the HIPAA, the privacy violations, the policy violations, because it's considered a theft of time as well. If you're going live on any of these platforms, more likely than not, you're making some money as well. So now you're double dipping while you also have a badge on, hold a professional license, recording at your job while you're doing your job. And it may be, people take for granted that it will be a verbal name that is possibly said. We write names, or there could be abbreviations of names, and people like, that's not a big deal, but it is, because people can place you at your job and Sally Sue your neighbor at the job the same time that you were there, and all of a sudden their name is on a board, and then there's a diagnosis in the background, and they can put those two letters together with when you were working, and then when they, do you see what I mean?
Oh,
It can
yeah.
go down a bad rabbit hole.
A separate kind of trend going on is when someone feels wronged, or, consumer feels wrong, they kind of post it, and they've got these, people who are able to dig up all this information. I think it's incredibly naive to think that people who are watching this video or are on the internet who see this type of content wouldn't be able to do that same type of research. It can happen, and to think that it wouldn't or that it won't happen is just, like I said, naive. And better than that. You could do better than that. Come on.
That's where I was going to chime in as well, is that I also have to say, as someone who's been practicing for 25 years, I'm very proud of my profession, and that is not upholding the integrity of our profession. And what's the message we're giving to patients as well when we do stuff like that? No, we don't need that light on us, especially now. It's the epitome of unprofessional conduct. Because I also like to remind nurses, swing that door the other way, take your badge off and lay in the bed. Would you be okay with them TikToking you out, or Instagramming or Facebooking live out while you're just at your job, and all of a sudden you're plastered all over? Remember, it's a privilege to hold a license, and that's the board's words, not mine. And that can be taken away from you. That privilege has far-reaching ramifications if that lands on a desk at the Board of Nursing. And you and I both know that very well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, really clear the public kind of plays a big role in how this can get escalated. Let's kind of dig into exactly what's going on here and how it crosses that line. We're talking about, you said, they're live at work. We're talking about theft of time. You're filming while you're providing patient care. There's absolutely just a number of HIPAA violations that can occur. I'm sure they're picking apart these videos when they see them. What should nurses really be aware of and very conscious of?
So you and I are in the line of work, and the law firm that you work for represents anyone who would hold a professional license, but a lot of times it's nurses and physicians. I do understand. Is that correct? Right. So
Mhm.
that's your perspective. So you there see the provider coming to you. I was within a board of nursing, and then I was also I've been a legal expert, and then on the civil side as well as on the administrative side. So I say all that to say we have inside knowledge that a lot of nurses don't know.
Mhm.
We don't, when we go to school, when we learn stuff about the rules and regulations, we're drowning in medical terminology and care plans. We memorize what we need to know for the test as it pertains to those rules and regulations, but we're not criminals. I need to know where the bones in the ear. I need to know the muscles,
Right.
and I'm drowning in these acronyms, but I'm not a criminal. I'm not going to do anything unethically. So therefore, they don't understand the rules and regulations. And what should nurses know? And I'm going to broaden it out a little bit, not just Texas, but I'm going to talk about every nurse in the United States or anyone who holds a professional license. There is going to be roughly 3 sections that every entity that gives someone the privilege to practice is going to have in their basic rules and regulations. Standards of practice, that's pretty obvious, right? That will give you the guidance, whether you're an RN, an LPN, an MD, an NP, PT, insert whatever letters you are, the guidance, right? Under your standards of practice. Unprofessional conduct, it's going to list out what is some things that unprofessional conduct. You're going to look at that as well. That should be a basic guide. And then grounds for discipline. Those are 3 sections that anyone who holds a professional license, even if you're a real estate agent or whatever you are, every entity is going to list those things out. And those are pages long, not 300 pages. You care about those 3 sections, and then use AI, use a tool. I go to Cornell Law, which dumbs it down for me. And I say, I'm helping a nurse and a lawyer in Florida bring me up the rules and regulations as it pertains. No one's asking anyone to reinvent the wheel, but introduce yourself to your modality. That's like number 1, is just understanding the rules and regulations. Then you hit on another thing, policy. And let's just talk about that. Now, Texas does, I believe, have a good structure as it pertains to the rules and regulations, and we do have a traditional board of nursing. People who have a compact license or don't practice necessarily here, they don't have a traditional board of nursing. They fall under, let's just say, the California, under the ALJ, Michigan, maybe HHS or DHS, but someone is housing the rules and regulations that dictate your professional license. So you just need to make sure that you're introducing yourself to that. But use AI or some of these tools to dumb it down for you and just say, hey, I'm in Texas. I'm going to be coming to Texas. I'm taking an assignment there. Dumb it down for me under these 3 sections, and then give me some guidance. I'm an LPN. Can I administer blood? Can I do some of these things I may be able to do in Alabama, a state over, but now I'm coming to Texas. Can I do that? So you utilize these tools.
It can get really ugly when you have a lack of understanding of what you've done or what violations may have occurred. You can get the ombudsman involved. And I mean, we're talking, there could be criminal charges. If you're, messing with insurance, if insurance catches wind, you better bet they want to save money. They'll come after you. There's just a lot of different ways that things could go, and they'll all be happening at the same time. Don't think it'll be one right after another. You'll be out money. You'll be searching for lawyers. You'll be calling Maggie saying, hey, what can I do?
What just happened? How did all these 4-letter agencies get into my life? Because
Right.
all of a sudden you're getting letters, and it's not just from the Board of Nursing. And I'm just using the Board of Nursing loosely because we're talking about our state, but insert any state. If you come to this state and let's just say that you have 5 other licenses, you and I know what that looks like. You come to this state and something happens here, you get reported to this Board of Nursing, those other boards could come after you.
In fact, I've got some formal charges that I'll throw up here in a moment. And they had changed the Board of Nursing. They had a notice that came from the Board of Nursing. They changed it and then submitted it and posted it out to news outlets and for people to see. And I mean, to your nursing license, you really just ticked off the Board of Nursing, and they're definitely going to be, not happy with that. But we're talking about that is now that's I believe, federal document.
I was about to say, is that not? And again, now we're leaving my lane a little bit. You altered a state document. That might be a federal.
Yeah.
I don't know. How many?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think it's absolutely up there with the large, heavy offenses. So, I mean, that's one way that, you could get some criminal charges, civil charges. I mean, people have the ability to sue you civilly if they feel like, you put a
Videotape them.
Snapchat filter on a patient, yeah, they can absolutely turn around and sue you. Not only then will you be battling the Board of Nursing, but you'll be trying to duke it out in civil court as well. And I know that that's just going to drain tons of resources. Definitely not a position you want to find yourself in at all. And that's why it's so crucial to understand. And if you don't know, get help from someone like Mackie or an attorney or,
You have to
read
get
the
legal
rules.
representation. I tell nurses all the time, the number one thing is that you have to get a lawyer. Bottom line is, if you're involved in any litigation, I don't care if it's criminal, civil, you get arrested. You're in New Orleans, it's your 21st birthday, you are getting crazy on, bourbon, and you are arrested and you are for, public intoxication. Unfortunately, I'm not telling you it's right, but you and I both know the Board of Nursing will be involved because you will also have to report that when you go to renew your license, and or you will have to look at the rules and regulations in your state. When does it say you're supposed to report an arrest? Then we're going to go back to that policy. I promise you, and I've seen it because I've had nurses reach out to me who've gotten DUIs who unfortunately were in leadership, and they reached out to me and said, what do I do? I said, well, we got a couple things you need to look at. And I just provide education. Number one, you need to get a lawyer. Number one, you better have professional liability insurance. Number two, with that professional liability insurance, you're going to call that lawyer and you're going to start talking to them. Number three, you know what the policy says at that organization, more likely than not as well, especially as a leader. It's going to say that if you get a DUI or PI, you are arrested, you will have to let your employer know. And then your employer can leverage that against you as well. So you do have to understand, because if you show up to your job, whether you're in leadership or not, and the policy does say that you're supposed to report, and let's just say, for example, you're on Busted, and you and I both know this is a thing, and your picture gets sent to, I don't know, the CNO, and I would love to tell you that it's never been a thing, you're more likely than not going to get terminated instead of you responsibly going to your leadership. And maybe just now, because in some states, if you're terminated, that's automatic. You have to tell the Board of Nursing because they want to know if you're terminated. Not only that, now that's on your application or your resume that you can never lie about. You and I know that a lawyer is not cheap, that an investigation could go on to 2 to 3 years. You have more than one type of litigation. The financial burden could be so profound, but all these things, one event, I think we're trying to point out here where one event, whether you let culture, and culture is having your phone on you all the time, using it inappropriately, going live, texting, talking about patients on your first personal phone, because I'm going to even extend that a little more. You and I both know that is a huge no-no. If I have my employer phone, I'm allowed to use my employer phone that they've given me to not TikTok out or live stream out, but to communicate. The physicians can call me on my personal phone, on Tiger Text, and don't even get me started with that. No, because am I following the policy as it pertains to Tiger Text? I'm not. And only that, am I willing to hand over my phone for discovery? Not for my organization. Stop it.
Right, right.
No, not a chance.
No, exactly. Well, let's take a look at these formal charges. We'll kind of just, I want to just showcase what they look like for everyone, and then we'll talk about, we've really outlined the risks. We'll kind of talk about some tools and some rules to be very mindful of.
So formal charges are beyond what the allegations would be. So the complaint would come and the investigator could send out an allegation. Some states will just send out a complaint. We were talking about earlier, Texas will send out a full-on allegation. If there's solid evidence, we'll go back to the live streaming. There is actual evidence of the conduct that's just non-negotiable. There's no way to get around it. More likely than not, you're going to be sent formal charges like she has presented here. The first piece of it is the nurse's basic information. This is a formal document that's generated. This is what I would have been created. It was just a basic template that I was bleeding in the nurse's name, the violations. It was word perfect, folks. And I did say word perfect. And it would be stopped. So it wouldn't be an allegation. You see here is charge 1. So moved from the allegation to the actual formal charge, always listed out as on or about this date, this time. It's very basic. This one just happens to be a family nurse practitioner. It would be licensed practitioner. It would be whatever your credentialing was, RN. And then would move on to you are the respondent. And the Texas Board of Nursing are alleging this against you on or about this date, this time. We'll list out some violations like we referenced in the very beginning under unprofessional conduct, grounds for discipline, and standards of practice. That's why I said it was important to know that, because that's where these violations would have been pulled from. So they'll reference those. You get a notice. This is basic, just kind of language, legally language that's put here. You are being noticed. The notice is this formal charge that would be sent to the nurse via certified mail. That's why it is required for you to keep your address up to date. If you do not respond to the Board of Nursing, or if they send this to you more than 3 times, that can lead to the revocation of your license. When you involve your lawyer, which you should absolutely do so, that's a layer of relief, I feel like, for the nurse as well. You're not getting that certified letter. That can be very stressful for the nurse. Your legal team will keep you up to speed, but your lawyer will be receiving that letter, that any other communication from the Board of Nursing. So it is a level of comfort for you and protection. All of this, even if you get a formal charge, I want you to know as well, it is not hopeless. It is absolutely not hopeless. You have legal representation. You understand the process. Even if this, I know this is just a little bit of a rabbit hole, but one of a little trigger warning, number 1 reasons why a nurse will take their life or attempt suicide is a Board of Nursing complaint or formal charges. So it is not hopeless. You get legal representation, you work through the process. All of this stuff to a certain point is negotiable. That's why you have your law firm. The violations can be looked at. The different violations could be offered up. The allegation can be rewritten if it's not written appropriately. When I was the investigator, I would have something very basic that I was writing up the allegation up, and it may not be the full and complete story. Therefore, your legal team can come back and negotiate stuff with the board, even if it's sent in the formal charges.
Yeah, no, and I'd actually like to really piggyback off that. We've handled a case where social media was presented as evidence, right? So we're talking about, I mean, this is the Board of Nursing is saying, here it is, we've got it. Our firm, love this, our firm argued that that evidence was insufficient, unauthenticated, that those witnesses were unreliable, they weren't credible. And this person ended up getting a disciplinary order, but with CE credits and with an attorney. This really just speaks to how
Essential. Use the right word.
essential, yes. They modified the findings to include a statement that the accused had completely denied all of these allegations, right? So there are things that your attorney can do to negotiate, or there's just a plethora of options that your attorney knows because they studied the law and they understand this process that you aren't aware of, that happens behind closed doors, that people aren't running around going, "Hey, guess what? My attorney got me, 2 weeks instead of 16." It's not something people are running around saying. So absolutely explore what an attorney can do for you in your case.
It's essential. And like you said, I say that every day, all day. That's the number one thing that I say, because we don't learn the nursing law. Again, I'm not here to tell you that a nurse is not going to make a mistake. Our nurse doesn't do something wrong, but that doesn't mean that you should be punished or for the rest of your life. Or again, I'm not talking about someone who's intentionally harming someone. I'm talking about a nurse in their everyday life. Sure, this is a social media thing. Is this, should any nurse be going live? No, but they're going to do the restitution. They're going to do time. And should they be able to go on with their life? Yes. And that's why you have your legal representation to help you mitigate. And that's what she's saying, mitigate the outcome. Because I'm here to tell you, the nurses reached out to me once they're done with the law firm. And now it's a year, it's 2 years from now. They're like, now I'm on these lists. Now I'm on these, or they do it without the lawyer. They are on these lists, but their lawyer and myself were thinking about, no. So we don't agree to this. So what we can agree to, and where the lawyer, or even, I mean, I've worked with your law firm. That's how we've crossed paths, right? And I'm like, hey, maybe this one, or, I could see where a nurse could do this because I am the subject matter expert. I worked in that modality, right? Therefore, I could speak to it a little bit more. And you're like, that's a great idea. Or the lawyer's like, yep, we're going to do this. You know what I mean? Those are all things that are very much negotiable.
What can license holders do, nurses specifically, to avoid this regulatory pitfall? I know that we've touched on it a few times, already this episode. Obviously, don't go live at work, but what are some other maybe not so obvious things that nurses should be aware of?
So I'm going to plug myself just for a minute. I do offer a charting course. Oftentimes you and I both know when we're looking at, now this is a little bit different because we're referencing primarily like a video or something that's out there, but oftentimes it is around a practice. And so what you do or do not document is a big deal. And if you don't document it, then it gets harder to validate, what was done. Now, obviously, with the growing, staffing ratio issues, with us push to, taking on more unsafe assignments, of course we do the care first. No one's asking you to chart in real time. That's not a reality. What I'm saying is making sure that you're advocating for yourself and you're not taking on an unsafe assignment. What does that look like in Texas? I'm going to say 217.11(1)(s) is the person making that assignment, which I don't feel is safe. And then T, me accepting that assignment. Are you asking me to violate the Nurse Practice Act? There's a tool I just gave you. Knowing the Nurse Practice Act, our state is very specific. But then you say, are you asking me to violate that? And then they pause. Then you're going to double down and say, you're going to deviate now. A different type of law. Medical malpractice is knowingly and willingly taking on an unsafe assignment. Are you asking us, you and I, and all the leadership, for me to take on an unsafe assignment? Because the definition of medical malpractice is knowingly and willingly taking on an unsafe assignment in a professional, respectful manner. You could have in a manila folder, I like to say, printed out, this what 217.11 on your badge. We all have these little badge buddies. You know what I mean? Pin that on the back of your badge, and you're just going to read from that. It's not you, it's the Board of Nursing in a professional, non-heated tone. Number 3, in Texas, we do have safe harbor. Now, number 4 is ADO, except despite objection. Let me be really clear. And you know this as well. ADO, except despite objection, is a tool used by unions. I know that can be considered a cuss word. I don't have any problems with that tool, whatever that is. But let me just be real clear. That is not safe harbor. And I don't know what that looks like. If the Board of Nursing does not approve that piece of documentation and you accept despite objection, that will be produced in civil, criminal, and possibly border nursing litigation. That is not the same thing as safe harbor, which enacts the peer review process to have your assignment looked at for you. Ideally, then you would leverage the 217.11.1 S&T. I just named two, but there could be other things. If you don't have the education, training, and knowledge, that's another under those three sections that I said is a 10-minute read that you could now leverage. Do not take for granted your orientation. Do not take for granted your orientation. It is owed to you. Do not let them make you think that it is not your right to have that. It is. And then I'm going to lean back in on how do I have the education, training, and knowledge? And I am quoting the Board of Nursing. If you're not affording me an orientation, then you would quote that. If you're saying that I don't get 12 weeks, you're going to go to evidence-based science research to pull that in, and then you're going to lean in on the Board of Nursing where it does say that. I am touching on something I'm not sure if you're aware of that's happening in the nursing environment, where they're not extending the new nurses a full 12 weeks. And I'm not even tied to 12 weeks, because if I'm working in the ICU, how do you know in 12 weeks that I'm going to be ready to manage someone who's critically ill on my own? You don't. So come back to the table, reevaluate that, and then you work out a plan. But you lean in on the Board of Nursing saying that I have the education, training, and knowledge to take care of this person on my own. But you see what I mean? In all
Right.
even tone. I did not change my tone, and in a respectful, and I'm not going to tell you you're not going to get harassment. But if you all stand together and you all have the same knowledge, if you all stand united, the charge nurse isn't taking patients, but you use these tools and you stand united. And all I did was quote the rules and regulations. I didn't quote anything else. That was it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that nurses have been dealing with for a long time. So those are fantastic tools for people to feel empowered and be able to put their foot down when they know that things aren't right.
I have free resources on my website, charting tips, and then just some basic stuff about border nursing investigations. Because I do think that all nurses, I'm about a little bit scared straight, because you and I know if they're coming to either one of us, the process has already started.
Exactly.
Maybe
Yeah.
2 to
Some
3
things already
years.
happened.
2 to 3 years more likely of your life, the financial burden, the unknowing, the when is the next, it's all these things that you and I hear every day that I don't want for you. I don't want for any nurse. So the more that you understand that the border nursing, and just as we wrap it up, because the thing that's not beat into us enough, and maybe a little mind-blowing to you, but we're not really taught that the border nursing is not there for us.
Yeah, no, I think that is mind blowing. And yeah, you would think that the board who granted you the license would kind of keep you in their corner, right? But no, they're there to protect the public, and that's really big. They regulate your license, and they
Say
don't
that again,
protect
we're on the
it.
regulator.
Right. You got to know your regulator. And that's why we've created this to help kind of bridge that gap between I don't understand this, or even if you're reading it, you don't really understand what you're reading. And you have to. You just have to. You've got to
That's
figure it
right.
out.
This is where you leverage the tools that we're talking about, Cornell Law, AI,
Hmm.
whatever you're using, plug it into to AI. You're coming to Texas, you practice here, you're a new nurse, and you're trying to figure out what exactly is my scope of practice in an ICU, in a surgery center, in a home health setting, leverage these tools that we already have in our environment to help you. If nothing else, it'll get you the link to the Texas Board of Nursing or the National Council of State Boards of Nursing. And the last tool that I'm going to leave everyone with as we wrap it up, that I talk about in my charting class and anywhere that I speak or I do anything across the nation, is the decision-making framework. It is 8 questions that you are asked, and please bring up the visual, folks. You need to look it up. It comes from the National Council for State Boards of Nursing, who gives guidance to every state to put the rules and regulations in. And one of those is the decision-making framework. It goes 1 through 8, says what, yes or no. It's either yes, you move on, or no, it's a stop. And the last one is number 8. Are you willing to accept the responsibility of your actions?
The big one.
It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And when you make that final decision, whether it's you're going live on social media, you're, doing something, you're copying, you're pasting, you're deleting, you're doing something in your workplace, and your little nursing gut's telling you, folks, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do
You better
it.
be willing to accept the responsibilities of those actions and all those consequences that come with it. Yes.
And the
Absolutely.
mere reporting to a board of nursing, because one of the questions that people don't realize, if you're arrested or if you're involved in civil litigation, or you're found negligent in civil litigation, early on in my career, one of my very good friends and I did help for her to get her license back after she got it revoked because she was involved in civil litigation where they found her civilly negligent for a pressure ulcer. Her husband was active duty. She moved, didn't update her address, something that could have easily probably been handled, but because she didn't get those 3 letters, that led to the revocation of her license. Not just one, but all her license fell. So
Wow.
one act, you and I both know, can lead to so many other things. So yes, are you willing to take responsibility for your actions?
Thank you very much, Maggie, for pulling this curtain back on, what really happens when social media collides with the Nurse Practice Act. And the Texas Board of Nursing gets involved, and that's obviously not something you want to happen. So here's your big takeaway. Social media is never personal when you're a licensed professional. What you post can follow you straight into a board investigation. Make sure you're protecting your patients, your professionalism, most of all, your license. Check out our links below to visit Maggie's advocacy resources. Read the Texas Board of Nursing social media guidance, huge one, and more. Be sure to subscribe, share, and join us next month as we continue charting the issues that matter to Texas medical professionals. Until next time, know your rules, guard your license, and keep charting Texas.
Know Your Regulator, the podcast that inspires you to engage.